So from the United States, which is where I'm from, the people who have historically been marginalized are people who are over the age of 40. So if we're thinking about age, if we're thinking about people of color, if we're thinking about people with disabilities, we're thinking about people with different lower socioeconomic status. We're thinking about class. We're also thinking of sexual orientation. If you're thinking about any group that has historically been excluded or disenfranchised, these people, that's what we would consider to be a marginalized group. So microaggressions are real. They were first discussed or given the name microaggression back in 1970. An African American psychologist who was a professor at Harvard at the time, Dr. Chester Middlebrook Pierce, actually coined the term microaggression to describe behavior that he noticed Black people were enduring. And now this term has been expanded to include the groups that I just previously named, to basically include anyone who's in a marginalized group. So I want to give you an example about what a microaggression may look like in the workplace, just to kind of help give context to this topic as we move towards discussing this more further with the panel. So it may look like everyone's sitting in a meeting and a female colleague is sharing her point of view, and a male colleague talks over her, interrupts her, and says something like, well, what she's trying to say is, and then takes that opportunity to explain it for her. So this would be an example of a microaggression. And many of the microaggressions that we come across that have to do with women fall into three categories. And that is inferiority, invisibility, and sexual objectification. So inferiority, example of that would be a woman being ignored during a meeting, being cut off while she's trying to make a point, not being invited to meetings that her title would suggest that she should be invited to. Invisibility, an example of invisibility would be people using the term guys when women are also sometimes using the terms like guys indicates that people are not acknowledging that there's not just men in the room, there's also women here as well. And so some people have taken issue with that term guys. He's saying that that can be a form of microaggression because it indicates invisibility of the women in the room. And then finally, sexual objectification. Now, what does that look like in the workplace as it applies to women? Well, it can look like focusing on appearance, asking women to wear makeup or commenting on their personal appearance, but those same comments aren't being directed towards male employees, saying things like you should smile more, things of that nature. And so usually when we talk about microaggressions that are related to women, a lot of times they'll fall into those three categories. Another concept that I want to explain is systemic racism. And I want to share that because again, this is a term that will help us in our discussion with the panel that's coming right after me. So when we're thinking about systemic racism, specifically when we're thinking about the United States, in the US, race is a social construct. And it was created to make a social hierarchy in the United States. And so when we're thinking about systemic racism, it's a form of discrimination. And it pervades every level of society, where we think about medical care, healthcare, education, housing, the political system, even how we vote for and what people are allowed to vote, and what barriers are put up to people in front of certain people so that everyone doesn't have the same opportunity to vote and express their privilege to vote, or their right to vote, excuse me. And even the legal system. When we're talking about systemic racism, we're talking about a system that is set up to specifically disadvantage certain members of society and to advantage other people of society. And this concept is important when we're thinking about microaggressions because some of these comments that are being said to people, some of the reasons why they're offensive is because it continues to perpetuate systemic racism. This next concept I would like to share with you all is the concept of critical race theory. And this is a concept that is there's a lot to it, and so I'm just going to briefly describe it a little bit. But I encourage you all to continue to read and learn more about this topic as you end this as we end this session today. That this is just the beginning and not the end of your understanding of this area. But critical race theory basically is a critique of the current social construction of race and institutionalized racism. Um, I know in other countries they may not use the term race or may not focus on race, but you can substitute that for ethnicity, so that you kind of have we all have the same kind of understanding. So critical race theory recognizes that race or ethnicity intersects with other identities, including sexuality, gender identity, and others. And critical race theory also recognizes that racism is not a relic of the past. It's something that is continuing and happening up to this very moment. It also acknowledges the legacy of slavery, segregation, and the imposition of second class citizenship on African Americans and other people of color, and how it continues to permeate the social fabric of this nation. So as we go into the next part of this particular session where we're going to be talking to our panelists, I want to leave you with a short poem because the whole purpose of us having this session is for us to recognize bias when we see it and to call it out when it's happening within ourselves, but also when we see it happening to others or see people acting in a way that's biased towards others. And so all of this is happening because people are being judged by what they look like or and being measured by their appearance. And this poem that I found is just another kind of like a short little example of why we don't want to judge people by their outer appearance, but allow um, what's inside to make the decisions for how far and high they're going to go in life. By Isaac Watts. Could I create myself anew, I would not fail in pleasing you. If I could reach from pole to pole or grasp the ocean with a span, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the human. I hope you all enjoy your time this afternoon and thank you again for being here with us to discuss this very important topic.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I'll make sure that I will pass on the big applause. I just have to do that. Now we are going to be passing to the second part of today's discussion. And I am delighted to introduce Professor Jafar Dawouni, who's an associate professor of political science at Howard University. She's a qualified barrister at law before the Ghana Superior Court of Judicature. She holds a doctorate in political science from Georgia State University. Her primary areas of research include judicial politics, women in the legal profession, gender and the law, international human rights, women's civil and society organizing, and democratization. But very importantly, she has been an award winner. So I am delighted to say that in 2020, she was the recipient of the Women in Law Academia International Award for the Women in Law Initiative. So here she is. And I will hand over to her for the next part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lizette. So thank you for the introduction. You've done it for me. We decided that we just wanted to use our voice to show that women have a voice and power. We're not going to use microphones. So if you cannot hear us, please let us know. Microphones were created for a reason. We will use it. And so I will not take much time. Lizette, thank you. Like we've met so many times over Zoom. She's my BFF. And it's great to get to me. So for that reason, I want to thank the Women in Law Initiative for really getting us all together, for the wonderful time we've had, and to meet wonderful people, old friends, and to make new friends. I also want to commend the Women in Law Initiative. One thing I have noticed that from the very beginning of this organization, Alex and Franz have committed to diversity. They are intentional about involving different strands of our human existence. And so wonderful work. Please keep that up because we need that. Without taking much time, I will let each speaker introduce themselves, tell us your name, where you work, and what motivates you. So I know your names, so I'll say next, you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Therese Frank. I'm an attorney in Vienna. I'm a feminist, and I am a strong advocate for a more inclusive legal profession, especially regarding our attorney profession. So, yeah, that's enough for me.
Hi to everyone. My name is Ana Nestorovic. I'm a lawyer from Serbia, from Belgrade. And my specialty is commercial and labor law. And having my experience in the court, I saw that law can be toothless. So I started to think, how can we address issues of labor rights and workers' rights? So I enrolled in doctorate program here at VU and at the Institute for Gender and Diversity. So my focus is discrimination in the workplace, highly skilled migrant workers, intersectionality between gender, race, ethnicity, class. So we will talk more about that today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think some of you might have remembered me from yesterday, but I'm Paula Tavares. I'm a senior legal and gender specialist with the World Bank. I've been working there for over 12 years and focusing specifically on advancing women's rights and advancing laws around the world for more inclusive and more equitable opportunities for women and girls. With that, it's become a huge passion. Just working, I work all over the world, but mostly throughout Africa, throughout Latin America, Brazil, my home country, and just seeing the different levels of inequality still in the law, the restrictions that women face, but also even when the law is neutral or equitable in practice, how the women and girls still experience various forms of inequities, discrimination, violence as an extreme form of that. So it is my passion to advance these issues, to work for a world where we have more equitable opportunities and rights for all.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Luando, and I am an attorney from South Africa, Johannesburg. I'm also a writer and a speaker, and actually 2 years ago, I published my first book called Made in South Africa. And I think it speaks to what motivates me. If you're born in South Africa, if you're made in South Africa, you marinate in this stuff. You know, you see the glimpses of the worst kind of, atrocity, but you see glimpses of the best kind of humanity. And I've sort of come of age and engaged in that tug and pull. And I think me being an attorney makes sense with the background of my country.
Well, thank you to my panelists. So I take back my comment about not using the microphone because we have a full room, which is a good thing. I just want to make sure that I don't keep making my panelists stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. You all will get dizzy. So we will use the microphone if you don't want it, it's fine. Before we start, the professor and me is going to ask you to do one thing. Please take out a piece of paper and write down 3 key words you hear during this panel. 1 word, or it could be 2 in terms of double, but 3. So at the end of the panel, I'm going to get a sheet of paper. You don't have to have your name on it. Just 3 key words that stood out to you. You can write them, but just circle the 3 that stood out to you. And I'll get them at the end of the panel. We're going to play an exercise later on. So you don't have to do it, but it's highly recommended because you write, you take away. So I want to really thank our keynote speaker, Tiffany, for setting the tone for us. And we're going to go into questions that have been prepared to really understand what this microaggressions are, what they look like, and how they manifest. So in order to give each of the panelists your own voice, I want to start off with a definition of your definition of microaggressions and what it means. So I'll start with Therese.
When I got the invitation to speak here, I was delighted, and I thought, okay, microaggression. I had heard it before, and I thought I knew what it was. And when I looked it up, I was right. I knew what it was. But I am doing a lot of reading on these topics regarding inclusion, feminism. So this was something I was familiar with. But I thought, okay, going in here, I should ask people what they think about this topic, because this interests me. Because it's a topic that is fairly new in Austria, and I'm not sure that it's commonly known. So I went to my employees, students of the University of Vienna, and I told them, look, I'm going to a panel on microaggressions. Can you tell me your take on things? Each one of them. What are microaggressions? What is this? So I went to my partner, my law firm partner, a man, and I told him, look, I'm doing a panel on microaggressions. Maybe you have something to say about this. And he said, what's a microaggression? I've never heard this before. So I told him, okay, you have no idea. Let's say I would tell you, Sven, you're doing so much sports, but still your belly is so round. How come? And he was so upset. He's like, how can you tell me something like this? But I just wanted to make an example. And then he looked at me very confused and he told me, but what has this to do with the Women in Law Conference? And I said, yeah, it's because women, especially in the legal profession, are subject to this all the time. And then he said, but I don't understand, why should men degrade women verbally? And I was like, wow, you live in a different world. I tick so many privilege boxes, and I know it. I'm white. I come from a loving background. I have enough money. I'm healthy. I'm skinny, which is considered to be a privilege as well. Yeah, it's what it is. Yeah, so, and still, I have encountered so many times that I was subject to these microaggressions, especially with regarding when you're in the law profession and you want to become a mother. So you still are told, but if you want to have kids someday, don't try to be an attorney. You can go like into some other things where you can take care of your children, but please don't become an attorney. Or something that a colleague of mine told me. So she went to a hearing in front of the court, and the colleague on the other side, another attorney, told her, this is so great that you have it in you to give your daughter away to go working like to a stranger. My wife couldn't do that.
Be intentional. And oftentimes the person who is conveying the behavior and the practices as well is unaware. Not all the time, again, can be intentional, but oftentimes. And that is the issue with identifying and the pervasiveness of it. As explained here, it's a relatively new concept. It's provided language. I think that's the awareness raising part of it. It's provided a vocabulary that can be used to identify these kinds of behaviors and discrimination that minority groups have faced and weren't able to express clearly in society. Right?